Software companies have made significant progress in making their products more accessible, but there's still plenty of work to be done. Today, I'm joined by Catherine Nichols, Senior Director of Accessibility Programs at Salesforce, to talk about what her company is doing around accessibility and why she thinks it's important for companies to have a single person spearheading their accessibility efforts. Catherine, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so there are a lot of ways technology has improved access for people with disabilities, but there's still a long way to go. And there's a lot more that software developers and technology vendors can make their systems more accessible to people, whether they have visual impairments or auditory impairments or a motion impairment of some kind. What are some of the ways that you see companies are actually, doing better than they were in the past? And what are some areas where they still have work to do?
Yeah, and first I'd say that it's a marathon, not a sprint, maybe even an ultra marathon. So there's always the first step that we can take. And Salesforce is on this journey of accessibility for all. And from our perspective, we started about 10 years ago with a key focus on product accessibility. And then over the past couple of years, that's moved into our events, making sure our events like Dreamforce, like Trailhead DX are accessible, and then also our real estate portfolio. And excitingly, last year, we started the Office of Accessibility, really doubling down on all of these efforts. And this is a cool story because it was a grassroots effort by Ability Force, which is our employee resource group or equality group at Salesforce for people with disabilities and their allies. I'm actually the vice president of Ability Force at Salesforce as well. So they brought up the initiative that we should really have an Office of Accessibility to increase the accountability and transparency of all of our accessibility initiatives across Salesforce. And this was supported by our key leadership across Salesforce as well.
And I think you were telling me before the interview that, like you said, it led to the creation of a new position there at Salesforce, someone that could have a leadership role, a responsibility, could be, a primary point of contact within the organization to push these initiatives forward, right?
Right. Yep. So I'm leading up the Office of Accessibility and have some key members who are reporting into that group as well, focusing on compliance, on workforce development internally to Salesforce, as well as external workforce development in our Salesforce ecosystem, and then our partnerships and communications as well. So one partnership that we have is with Disability In, where we received the 100 score on the Disability Equality Index, showing us as a best place to work for people with disabilities, knowing that we still have a long way to go and areas to improve on, but it's a great start.
How important is it to have someone in that role, to have a single person who can help lead those efforts, as opposed to it being spread out among different departments, whether it's the CEO's office, whether it's HR, because there are a lot of stakeholders that have to be involved and have to be on board throughout the company. But is it important or almost necessary to have one person to spearhead these efforts?
I think it's really important to have one person spearheading the efforts and up at the highest levels of a company, bringing it to the executives and to the board level, and really getting an overview of all the accessibility initiatives that are going on at Salesforce and creating one vision for what our company wants to be when it comes to disability inclusion and accessibility. We believe that we can be one of the most accessible companies in the world and that we can be a #1 employer for people with disabilities. But that's going to take a cohesive effort, and you need a leader to bring all of those pieces together.
You talked about a lot of these initiatives being driven from the ground up, from feedback that you received from your employees, I'm assuming trailblazers, from the people who use your products. How did that process work? of getting that feedback and then doing something meaningful with it?
Yeah, so we have communities. We have a Trailblazer community of disability topics where people come and share information on what they want to see from our products, ideas around our products for accessibility. So that's getting information from our partners, from our customers, and bringing that to our product development teams to make sure they're seeing that information as well, and designing with inclusive design in mind, making sure our products are usable for everyone. And then, yeah, we have employees too who want to make sure that our events and our workplaces and now our virtual workplace environment is accessible so that they can do the best work of their lives and their careers.
Well, how important is, I guess, the balance between maybe regulation when it comes to, sort of ensuring that people have access to the workplace, versus, I guess, what's happening at a grassroots effort, or just isn't is being done voluntarily by organizations. Is there a balance there? Is there a there are certain things that companies are required to do here in the States, whether it's through the ADA, but then there are, that only goes so far. So, where does, I guess, compliance and the regulatory framework help, but then stop? And then what should companies be doing above and beyond that?
Yeah, their compliance is very important, and we do have, like you mentioned, the ADA, and it's coming up on its 30th anniversary this in a few weeks, and it's a very important piece of legislation for sure. But there's a lot more that we can be doing beyond just the compliance and regulatory initiatives. And that can be for online experiences or in-person experiences too. So really making sure that our events like Trailhead DX virtual can be accessible via captioning, that screen readers and assistive technology can be utilized to engage in these events and in these online and virtual experiences. So yes, there's a compliance level that we have to meet, but we want to go above and beyond that compliance level to really meet the needs of all of our employees and our customers.
In your experience, in your role at Salesforce, it is there a clearly a skeptic would say, well, we're only going to do what we have to do. We're not going to try to engage, and clearly that's not the position that Salesforce has taken, and that we would hope most companies wouldn't, in terms of wanting to engage a widest possible audience that they could. So I guess, can you talk about some of the benefits that you've seen at Salesforce as a result of these initiatives?
Yeah, I mean, it's just good business to include more people as your customers. There's 1 in 4 people who have a disability, adults who have a disability. And if you're leaving out that entire population, you're leaving out an entire talent pool, market, customers, partners, just a great resource group to include in all areas of your business. And with a disability, we can all come and into having a disability, whether permanent or temporary, at any point in our lives. So it just makes sense to design and include for all for your business.
Now, I know you mentioned a few of them already, but there are some specific initiatives that, Salesforce is working on right now. One of the ones you and I had kind of talked about before the interview was the admin partnership with the Blind Institute of Technology. Can you tell me about that and what you're doing there?
Yeah, I love this partnership. So, like you mentioned, we've partnered with the Blind Institute of Technology in Colorado, who are providing admin certification for their blind professionals and students. And the way that we're supporting this is providing on the job training after their certification has been completed to provide real world experience and to increase the success of employment for these blind professionals in their lives. And a cool thing that they're using is Trailhead, which is available anywhere and virtually, to provide this training and this certification program. And the Trailhead platform is accessible for screen readers, which are utilized by those who are blind or low vision. And we know that there's some areas that we need to improve upon in Trailhead for additional accessibility, but the feedback we've received from our partners thus far is that it's quite a successful program for our blind students.
Was it something that was difficult, I guess, to implement within the product? So was it hard to include kind of this functionality within the Trailhead platform? Or it wasn't that difficult? I'm thinking about companies who are looking to make their platforms accessible for screen readers or for other, for other mechanisms to help people, to help people use the systems that have any type of impairment. So, what was the process that you went through to make sure that Trailhead could allow that kind of accessibility, and to make it accessible to people?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is the best way to go about it is thinking of inclusive design from the get-go, understanding that that's not always possible and that maybe companies are going now back and looking at how they can re-engineer their products, re-engineer their systems to be more accessible. And so we do have some offerings, once again, on Trailhead for developers and our partners to learn more about accessibility. And we have two trails. One is the learning the basics of accessibility of web design, and then the basics of accessibility in general. So you can take those trails on Trailhead and learn more about the design process and thinking of inclusive design and accessibility from the beginning, or going back and re-engineering your products to be accessible.
How critical is that to what your role is to ensure that as products are built in the early stages, developers, admins, product managers, they're not making decisions that prevent the products from being accessible to people with disabilities?
It's really getting in front of these product owners and letting them know what the importance is of product accessibility and what they can get out of including all people and people with disabilities too on utilizing their products. So it's getting in front of these product owners, sharing what the best practices are and why they should be interested in developing their product with inclusion in mind, which is, yes, a key part of my role and the role of the Office of Accessibility.
For other companies that want to create a similar role to yours, who want to sort of do more of this, what would be the one piece of advice maybe that you would give them?
There are a lot of resources out there, and we've shared some publicly on our websites as well, on the value of creating an Office of Accessibility for a business, the business case. And there's a strong business case out there, and I think that you can share that business case with your executives on what it does for their business to be inclusive of people with disabilities, from a good thing to do, an ethical thing to do, but then a best business case for that too.
Well, Catherine, I really appreciate you taking the time again with us today and talking about this very important topic.
Yeah, thank you.